in business, you want to capture their information more than you want to just make sure they have yours, because they're not going to follow up. Most people have the poorest follow-up skills on earth. So you got to fight everything inside of you that makes you want to be lazy, that makes you want to just wait for something to come your way. You have to make it happen with your ability to follow up with people consistently.
Boom, 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 boom. What's up, everybody? You're listening to the Hustle and Flowchart podcast with your boys, Matt Wolf and Joe Fier. Check it.
Are you ready for this?
I was born ready for this.
Are you sure?
That's too cliche.
This one...
Is anybody ever really ready?
No.
Okay.
But we can be prepared.
Mm-hmm.
I think our guest, JaMarr Johnson, would agree with that statement.
Mm-hmm.
We can prepare at least.
Yeah.
You never know what's coming.
Yeah. I actually do know what's coming.
Oh, what?
But that's just because I got a crystal ball.
Where is it?
You can't see it.
Oh, it's an invisible one.
Yes, it is. It's an invisible crystal ball.
Are you a psychic?
Yes. And so I know exactly what we're going to talk about in this episode.
I thought you don't believe in psychics. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up.
I don't even know where this is coming from right now.
Your crystal ball.
It's like you don't even know me.
Okay, fine. You are a psychic. I see your crystal ball. Yeah.
Thank you. So yes, we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff on this one. We're actually going to talk about JaMarr's stand-up comedy career and how that's kind of parlayed into business and the lessons he's learned doing stand-up comedy. We're going to talk about how to be a super connector and connect and build rapport with pretty much anybody. We're going to talk about some affiliate marketing strategies, and he also is deep in the cannabis industry. Now, we're not going to talk a whole lot about the cannabis industry, but if you stick around towards the end of the episode, he blows our mind with some of the stuff that he's doing right now in the cannabis industry.
It's the mechanism, it's the way he's thinking about the whole thing.
Yeah, they're just doing things completely different from any sort of cannabis company we've ever heard. So if you want your mind to be blown about like where that industry is going, stick around and he's going to talk about that at the end.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at the bio. I just want to make sure that I'm giving JaMarr some, you as an audience, at the audience. Jesus, can't talk. Giving JaMarr a little bit of a little context about JaMarr, because this episode kind of like, it's like a long just uncovering of all sorts of layers. So you'll hear he's an entrepreneur. I love that.
Yeah, even though you struggled to say it most of the day.
I actually said it perfectly, and I was not looking at it.
I'm impressed.
So I know. Go me. From New York City, you'll hear the background there, military, Marines, and Navy, and then also crushed sales records. And I mean, so we actually don't talk a lot about the professional stuff. Like, we kept it very life, and I guess everything, like the principles that which I love it, but the context here, I mean, selling like a crazy person, it sounds like he partners with a bunch of different companies. You mentioned the fastest growing virtual cannabis company. It looks like he might be a part of a couple of those. There's a lot of stuff. He's been featured in some popular books, right alongside with Tim Ferriss and Bill Gates. That's pretty damn good.
I've heard of him.
So he's done some amazing things. So definitely go check him out after this episode. He hooks you up with some cool stuff.
Yes, I am JaMarrJohnson.com, and JaMarr is spelled with two R's, JaMarr. I am JaMarr.com. Sorry, no last name. I am JaMarr.com.
Perfect.
So go there. Also, go grab the action guide for this episode. Flowchartgroup.com is where you can do that. You join the Facebook group, and as a bonus, we'll send you the action guides. So you got to do that within 2 weeks of this episode going live, because it's always the four most recent episodes, 2 weeks worth of most recent episodes.
Correct. Yes.
So go to flowchartgroup.com to get the action guide from this episode and to join the amazing group with listeners like you.
Bam. And then lastly, we mentioned, and so here's what's kind of cool, and this didn't come in until later. The way we found JaMarr, or he found us, really. I don't know who found who. Let's be honest. I know he's been listening to the podcast.
We found each other.
You rock, brother. He purchased access to PodHacker like 10 minutes before one of our live sessions. It was like the open office hour sessions, and it was really pretty cool because he came in there and we just engaged in tons of conversations. So he joined because he has a podcast, his girlfriend has a podcast, but he's also in the music industry. Saw a lot of cool connections there. So all this to say is he's in PodHacker, and you should actually check out what we're doing over there. I just wanted to give you a little shout out. We have a playbook that we have it's free playbook. So if you want to check out what we're doing, we've mentioned PodHacker a lot in this episode, or sometimes. If you go to podhacker.com/playbook, that's actually it's like a compiled bunch of notes, got a bunch of strategies around how we approach podcasting, but also content.
And also how some of our past
it.
podcast guests approach podcasting as well.
It's kind of a mixed bag there. So if you're curious about what that Podhacker thing is, that would probably be the best place to start.
Yeah.
From here. So podhacker.com/playbook, and it is free.
Freezel.
That's it. Alrighty. We're done here.
Let's go talk to JaMarr.
Woohoo. All right, JaMarr, we are officially recording now. And
Yes.
it's see, I told you this is why that call, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, you and I, it flew by the time. And I think you were like, man, we vibed really well, man.
Yeah.
Sir.
I told Matt, I'm like, he's coming on the podcast. You'll know why.
Yeah, we've been chatting for 10 minutes before we even hit record. And we're like, why aren't we recording this? So yeah, now we're in.
So it's an honor to have
indeed.
you, man. You appear to be a busy man, but I know you're very smart with how you approach with things.
Yes, very busy. Yeah, I was in the Marine Corps for a little while before I switched to the Navy. And one of the things that we always talked about was work smarter, not just harder, right? So I am busy, but I'm busy with the things that I choose to put on my calendar, like the 90-minute massage I just had a half hour before our meeting.
Nice.
So you're
I
really
go get that
tapped in.
twice a week because if you don't keep your operating system and your machinery moving, it's going to fail on you at some point.
Yeah. It's interesting. Actually, this new building that we're in, this is actually only our second podcast day recording into it. One of our neighbors is a massage therapist, so we're going to have to leverage that pretty soon.
Leverage that relationship, and also think about what you guys provide and what they are missing, which is probably something in the marketing and the referral space, and create a win-win-win. Listen, I go twice a week sometimes, and they get pricey. They add up. But, what's the cost of not having your health?
Yeah, man.
Like, how valuable is that, right? The etymology of the word of the word wealth actually comes from the word health.
Really?
So without that physical health, without that emotional, that mental, that spiritual health intact, I mean, you're a dead man walking.
You are, yeah. I mean, man, there's so many things just sitting at this desk. It's easy to get complacent on podcast days for us, because we're sitting here. But yeah, I was just doing a little bit of breathing over there, a little loosening up. I'm like, okay, it just gets the mind going.
Yeah.
But I called you a Renaissance man earlier, mainly because, when you sent us a list of potential topics, it was like a mile long, and they all sounded amazing.
Yeah, and we're looking at your art right behind you. That's amazing.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
And it's beautiful. So if you're not seeing, I mean, this should be the cover shot. Yeah, but head over.
There it is. There's the screenshot.
So I mean, your stories are going to be phenomenal either way. But where do we start? Because there's a lot of stuff we want to hit on. I know being a comedian, I feel humor is a big thing, and that stems back all the way to your childhood from your mom, I believe,
indeed.
right? So maybe we start there.
Indeed. Yeah, I mean, humor was one of those things. I'm originally from New York City, born and raised in the Bronx. I moved to Spanish Harlem when I was 12 years old and lived there until I was 18. So most of my really strong formative years were like 12 to 18 range, like running through the streets of Manhattan on the Upper East Side in Spanish Harlem. But the thing about like comedy was like we always laughed to keep from crying in my household, right? There was a lot of things happening. There's a lot of trauma. There's a lot of things happening. But, when you can laugh things off, they don't hurt you as much. It's like being able to laugh about things is almost like for me, it was like a defense mechanism, right? And then also kind of spending a lot of years of my youth with my grandmother, because my mother was recovering, was trying to get herself over her addiction with drugs. For 8 years, I lived with my grandmother, and, my grandmother was much older. So she dressed me like I was from the 70s, but I was in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
So me and my brother got picked on a lot by people. So I had to learn at an early age how to basically, use verbal kung fu and chop people down to my level when they had their crews, when they had their friends. And so I developed that. Now it got me into a lot of fights because I was really good at it. So I got punched in the mouth a lot. But I was never afraid. I just knew, okay, I got to be aware of my surroundings. I developed some really good foot speed so I can get away from the bullies and stuff from time to time. But yeah, so that was where it started. It was just kind of like a self-defense mechanism, and also a recovery mechanism. You know, when you have the traumas of life that happen at an early age, I learned how to laugh things out versus internalizing them, holding them in, and then, you know, crying about it and feeling like, you know, woe is me, so to speak.
Yeah, no, it's freedom when you get that laughter coming out, especially if it could be in your darkest days or nights. I mean,
absolutely,
man, that's a superpower right there, because you can get through anything. Then, you know,
it is. And one of the things that I've learned since, you know, just looking at the science of laughter, you know, when you laugh, you release a neurochemical cocktail, but the main part of it is oxytocin, right? Now, oxytocin is responsible for helping you actually bond with people. So literally, you cannot build a tribe without the presence of this neural cocktail, right? And having oxytocin. So laughter is important to bring people closer together, to increase trust. So what I actually was doing without knowing it at the time was I was befriending my bullies.
Yeah.
Because if I made a bunch of people laugh, right, those people would have less animosity towards me. And then eventually the bully would have to decide, do I want to keep this verbal kung fu battle going when knowing that I can't win, or do I want to absorb this person into my crew and have respect for them because of their skill set?
Right. You're almost seen as an asset. Like now it's like,
Absolutely.
Okay, well, I can't beat him at that game. He's playing a whole different match. It's like UFC fighters. If you don't know that style of fighting, it's like, well, and you know, you're going to get whooped on probably.
Yeah. So you go the next fight, you go train with a bunch of wrestlers now so you can develop takedown defense, right? Which is what Francis Ngannou was able to do. And basically he took Miocic down and dominated the fight because he figured out that thing he lacked, and he always had the power, right? He could put people to sleep with one punch, but now can he round out his game? Right. So I think every person, no, I don't care what business you're in, what you're pursuing, there is a level of needing the ability to become somewhat of a Renaissance person. Otherwise, you're going to be vulnerable. If you can only do one thing, then you're only useful for that one thing. So what happens when that one thing is no longer useful? What happens to your stability?
Yeah, man. That's a great lesson. I never thought of it that way. So if you think of yourself like this sphere of Renaissance, I don't know, I'm just making stuff up here because like you got the divine right behind you. What's the title of your painting again?
The divine feminine.
The divine feminine. And again, like you got to see this. It's beautiful. But I feel like are there certain things in this sphere of your art and what you've studied and done that you feel like are like the principles, or maybe there's like a handful that you're like, okay, I could recommend that, like comedy being one of them.
You know, it's interesting. You know, I think about, you know, every once in a while I recommend everyone take inventory of their life, right? What am I good at? What do I love to do? What do I enjoy doing? And then what have I been in pursuit of? And I think for me, I've always just been in pursuit of, I call it the art of learning, right? When you know how to learn, when you know like how you prefer to receive information, like there's something called VAC, right? There's visual, audio, and there's kinesthetic, right? I know that I'm an auditory learner, and I learned this lesson the most when I was a freshman in college, and my marketing professor brought me into the class, into office hours after the first exam because I got a 89. So I didn't even get an A, but I got an 89 on the test, but he never saw me take any notes. So he was a little suspicious. He was like, listen, you know, I know my tests are pretty hard, Professor Rothfeld, right? And I laughed out loud because I that was the ultimate compliment, because what I had done was, and this was in 1999 at Auburn University in Alabama, I brought a recorder for some reason. I've always been into tech and gadgets. I bought a recorder from the school bookstore, and I recorded the class because I was like, this guy is funny, he's interesting, I love this information. And I probably listened to maybe a quarter of those recordings, but because I was really paying attention attentively, and one of my abilities to learn is through hearing someone speak, right? So I can sponge that information. I was able to pass the test without reading the textbook, only re-listening to about a quarter of his lectures. I was able to get an 89 on his test. Wow. So when he learned about my methods, he was like, okay, you know, this is rare. I still would like you to read the book. I still would like you to take notes in class, just, as my recommendation to you. But I didn't do it the whole semester, and I passed with an A.
Wow. Yeah.
And it's funny because that was like over 20 years ago. I'm 41 now. I know I look young because black don't crack, right? But I am actually 41 years old. So when I was 19, I had this experience with this professor, and literally 20 years later, I was on a date a year before the pandemic. I was on a date with this firefighter chick, right? EMT firefighter chick. We were having a good time, and I had this random memory come to my mind. So I called my professor up because I was telling her this story, and he literally picked up and on speakerphone shared with her that he still tells his students today, you're no JaMarr Johnson, so you need to take notes.
That's cool. I've never actually heard anybody else who does that. But when I was in college, I did the same thing. I actually bought a recorder, and I had a CD burner at the time. It was like the very, very early days. I was the only person in my school that I knew that had one. And I would actually rip the audio onto my computer, burn them to CDs, and drive around. And on my commute, I would listen back to the lectures. And I never took notes in class either. Like, I've never heard of anybody else doing that.
What year was that for you?
So that would have been 2000, 2001, around there.
Okay, guys, so very close. So I was 1999 when I was doing this. So I think I had the first podcast, technically.
There you go.
First podcast ever on my marketing class, Marketing 101.
Yeah,
at Auburn University.
Yeah. I'm 38, so you got 3 years on me.
Yeah, there you go. No, so you picked that up young then, the auditory aspect of yourself. Yeah,
so auditory. So I'm a big auditory learner. I would say a lot of people have the kinesthetic capability, right? If you're like, for example, I was always a basketball player. When you're learning a new move, to see someone do it is cool, but to have someone kind of position your body and walk you through. Here's where your hand should be. If you're working on your jump shot, here's how your hand should be balanced so that you could hold the ball the ball in your hand without the other guide hand and balance it. So that when you release the ball, you can see what two fingers are right. So there's a kinesthetic aspect to things. But for me, I know I can learn probably 80% just audio, just hearing it. And then if I can see it, and then if I can physically do it, then that's the whole gamut for me.
That's perfect.
So I think a lot of people just need to learn how they learn, optimize that. And then you start to go through a process where you're more efficiently learning versus feeling like I'm not a read the whole entire chapter kind of guy. If like for studying, I'm going to read the high points and then zoom in on the ones that interest me and then make connections and correlations and then maybe read the chapter summary and then make sure I understand the kind of the gist of it. But that's going to be enough for me because if I try to read everything, I'm going to get bored. I'm going to fall asleep, right? I'm not going to pay attention to it all because you don't need to pay attention to it all.
Yep. Yeah.
Especially with Google nowadays, you can just Google little bits and pieces of information you need, but it's do you understand the principles, the core principles, and the strategies and tactics by and large, and you can apply them to multiple places.
Yeah. Oh man. All right. So we'll get into probably some more as we're getting into. I wanted to give because I was just thinking the way that we got connected originally is you bought you joined our Pod Hacker membership and jumped on our live session. I think it was like a gap of 10 minutes or 5 minutes or something right before that live call. I just remember seeing your name and you were extremely attentive, asking all these cool questions and coming up with all these crazy connections. And then basically we just got to digging around and you were like, dude, I'm in the music industry and you're seeing how, all these connections that you play in on the music side of stuff and how podcasters or content creators, digital market, all of that stuff, we can take a lot from, or, we can work together on these things. So
absolutely.
I wanted to make that connection and maybe dive into a little bit of your music side of things, a little later in life.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been writing like poetry and music since I was probably like 14, 15. The minute that I could get a boner seeing a cool chick, right? The minute that happened, I was writing poetry. I was like, how do I get this girl, right? But I was kind of a shy guy. So I led with my art a lot of the times. Like that was my, if I was reading a poem or doing a poem, it wasn't me. I had a protection. I had like a shield out in front of me. So I've always been into music. And then when I was in grad school, this was from 2007 to 2010, Monterey, California. I was going to Naval Postgraduate School where I got my master's in Science of Systems Engineering Analysis. So while I was studying there, that was my only job, right? I was a naval officer, but my only job was graduate school. So I had all of this extra time. So I was doing stand-up. I was producing music with a buddy of mine who had been producing for a decade before. And I probably started like producing tracks in 2005. I was living in Japan. I bought my first MacBook computer. It was in Japan, so it had the kanji keyboard. So it had like the Japanese keys on it and the English keys. And so I started with GarageBand back in 2005. But 2007, 8, 9 is when I really started making tracks, did a couple tracks. And then I had this really crazy opportunity where I was actually on an OkCupid date in Oakland, California. And this was right when Dave Chappelle came back from Africa. Yep. So he had just returned back to the States, and he had, unbeknownst to me, owned this comedy club or this venue that he was performing out of. And so he would put out tickets online, and this is in 2009. They would go on sale at noon, and by 12:02, 300 tickets would be sold out.
I believe it.
And this was happening for 2 shows, right? For like 16 straight days. So I'm on this random OkCupid date. I see this line of people outside. And I goes, what's that? She goes, oh, Dave Chappelle's back in town. I'm like, oh, changing our plans. We got to go see Dave Chappelle, right? So we go to the show. There happened to be 3 tickets left because it was raining outside. So some people didn't show up for their tickets.
Perfect.
So we managed to get in by the nick of time. We're sitting down before the show. And before the show, I'm running around, networking, feeling good. Like, oh, we're about to see Dave Chappelle. And I wanted to show you, I've got this business card that I still have from many, many years ago. But basically, it is a picture of me, right? And it's like a goofy picture, hands like this. And underneath it has my name. And it says comedian, writer, singer, artist, handyman. And so Dave Chappelle reads that out loud throughout the course of the show because of some stuff that happened. And it was such a validating moment because to me, that was the intersection of business, comedy, and specifically marketing. The fact that I met some people before the show started, they were the people who were like, hey, let's move up to the front row when some people got kicked out for yelling, Rick James, bitch, a bunch of times, right? And I'm not sure if you guys, you can bleep that out if you need to.
You're good, man. Say anything.
People kept yelling that during the show, right? And after 2 hours of like skillfully managing it, Dave was like, all right, you guys got to go. So he kicks those people out. And then one of the girls I networked with, she was like, hey, let's move up. The girl that I was on a date with at midnight, she was like, hey, I got to go to work in the morning. I'm a teacher. And I was like, gave her a kiss. See you later.
Have fun.
Like you just got to walk across the street. You're not that far. You know what I mean? I justified everything.
Go home or stay and watch Dave Chappelle. Go home with her, watch Dave Chappelle. Come on.
Exactly. So the show ended up being 6.5 hours. Dave performed from 10:30 at night until about 5:30, almost 6 a.m. in the morning. Wow. And I was just blown away. But that experience where he read my card, and if you go to my website, I actually have the track on my SoundCloud where he reads it out loud, and he's like, "Whose card is this?" And he reads it, and he goes, "Comedian, writer, singer, artist, handyman," and the crowd goes crazy. And I was like, "I made it!" I was like, from a standpoint of I made my idol laugh, and it couldn't get any better than that. But for me, what that also represented was, man, because he in his comment to me, he said, just looking at this card, you're going to make $1 billion. And I was like, it was something that I didn't really notice at the time, but I'm more interested in business than I am comedy. But I've been doing comedy for 16 years, and the first 4 were just like I was so focused on it. It was like everything I did all day long was, how do I make this funny? How do I turn this into a joke? Writing formulas. So I've been doing it so long that it's second nature to me, and I can turn it on, turn it off like a superpower. But in my mind, for the things that I want in life, the impact that I want to have. I know you guys had Bob Berg on a couple episodes ago.
You're a
His
go-giver.
book transformed my life in 2014, The Go-Giver. For the things that I want the most, being on stable footing as a businessman is going to make those things possible, whereas doing it as a comedian is just a huge gamble, huge risk, and not a lot of clear upside. So I decided to just blend the two of them together and just be an entrepreneur the whole time.
Entrepreneur.
Now, was this Chappelle thing, were you already doing stand-up by that time?
Yeah, I was doing stand-up for 4 years at that time when I met. That's why I had that goofy card, right? I had that card because I had been doing it. And it's funny, handing out 15,000 cards over the course of 5 years, I've received 5 calls directly from those cards.
Oh my God.
So in business, you want to capture their information more than you want to just make sure they have yours, because they're not going to follow up.
Yeah.
Most people have the poorest follow-up skills on earth. So you got to fight everything inside of you that makes you want to be lazy, that makes you want to just wait for something to come your way. You have to make it happen with your ability to follow up with people consistently.
And with those 5 calls, do you remember what services they called for? Was it for handyman or comedy? Or
4 of them were for comedy, and 1 of them was actually calling for handyman services. A woman called me and said, "Hey, I've got some plumbing work that I'm hoping you can help out with." And I was like, "Lady, if you notice the first word on there, it says comedian." That was a joke. Now, while I can come, work your plumbing out, it's probably going to be a lot more expensive than you think, because I'm in New York City right now, and she was in San Jose, California.
Oh, wow.
So I've been flying back and forth doing shows. Of course. So I was like, I'll come do it for the right price, but
man,
no. I know this. It's not totally business related, but I'm sure we could spin it back. But I'm curious about your first time on stage doing stand up. Like, what was that like? To me, we'll get in front of people and speak on business topics, but the vulnerability of being up there by yourself and telling jokes and hoping for the laugh still scares the shit out of me. So I'm curious about that first experience for you.
Yeah. So I'm not going to pretend like I wasn't nervous, but I learned very early on in life, you have to reframe the emotions that run through your body, right? Emotions run through your body, but you can still override it with your thinking, with your own programming, right? So the first time I was on stage, I had been writing for a couple of years. So I'd been preparing for this moment,
Right.
So I was ready for it. I wanted it. I wasn't afraid of it. But there are some things that happen to your body when you're in a completely uncomfortable situation. Your armpits sweat, your mouth gets, it gets dry, you get cotton mouth.
Right.
Your brain starts to go through kind of fight or flight mode. And so what happens is you actually start to compartmentalize thoughts, and you can't connect and you can't remember, right? So those things will happen to you. But I think, the couple years of preparation and just kind of visualizing it, seeing myself doing it, seeing myself succeeding at it. Plus, I had all of those other thousands of moments where I knew I had made people laugh. So I knew I was funny. You couldn't tell me that I wasn't, right?
So you proved it already, yeah.
Yeah, but it's a different story when it's all eyes on you and it's like arms crossed, let me have it, right?
Yeah.
So the first time out, it was okay, it was good. Like I had 175 people at the show, maybe 75, 80 of them were my own actual guests. And the other 120 or so were there to see the headliner, and I was just kind of his opener. And the way I got the gig was I was basically in my uniform. I went to the club owner and I said, "Hey, I think I'm funny, and I think I could bring a bunch of people out," because I knew
what they
it
care
was
about.
business before anything.
Always. Yeah.
And if I can put butts in seats, he probably wouldn't even care if I was funny or not.
Right.
It's like, hey, I just made an extra 1,000 off this guy. Who cares, right? So, I basically did some promoting and filled it up 2 nights in a row. Now, the beauty of it was the fact that I got to get up 2 nights in a row meant, first, I recorded my first set ever. So I have the footage. I actually still have it on the little 8mm.
Yep.
But basically, actually, it was a Sony Handycam. I forget the name of that cassette, but I watched my tape and I made the necessary improvements between show 1 and show 2. And so I probably got 80% better overnight.
Wow.
And the owner ran up to me after that second show and was like, "Hey, you were okay the first night, but you were really good night 2.
Wow.
So I think if you keep this up, you can probably do this as a career."
Nice. Wow. That is.
So that gave you all
preparation. Yeah. Preparation is everything. And just visualizing, we talk about it a lot in sports. Obviously in the military, we do that. You imagine yourself out there on the battlefield and you're just like, okay, if this happens, this is what I'm going to do. And you have to see it so that when you're there, time slows down because you've already been there. You've already prepared in your mind. Now you can be calm, cool, collected, right? You can actually get your hustle and flow on, right? I'm a big believer in flow. Flow is the state of like where you're fully prepared and your mind is now just making connections at the perfect time, and boom, you're just hitting that hole. You're just hitting the gap, right? In football, you're hitting the seam. That's what happens when you're prepared.
So that you just took the kind of the thought out of my mind, and this goes back to reframing emotions. That triggered something in my mind there. So I'm curious on how you do that. I know it's a lot of the wiring and probably upbringing and just practice. But speak about how you do that, and maybe how you can kind of guide others to maybe find how they can do that in themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's funny. This is actually one of the things that I coach people on. And it's funny how like tragedy gives you opportunity.
Sure.
Where if you can capture it and you can dissect it and you can excavate it, you now have a blueprint that you can pass on to people. And it's something that I wouldn't have asked for, but watching my mother get clean off of her addiction. My mother was addicted to crack cocaine. And I watched her in a moment make a decision to get clean. I remember it was clear. It was 1991. It was Thanksgiving. All of my other siblings, I have 2 brothers and a sister. They were all separated to various households with cousins and aunts and uncles. And I was the only one there because I was 13. And basically I watched her basically break down crying and then basically surrendered to her addiction, surrendered to admitting she had a problem and saying, Lord, help me, God, help me get through this problem. Right. So she checked herself into recovery treatment center the very next day, right? So we got to spend Thanksgiving with each other in 1991. Now, I, being as old as I was and other family members not having room, I got placed into Child Protective Services and went into foster care for the 3 months that she was going through. And I was living in Coney Island with some random family who made a business out of just collecting random kids, right? So in that moment, now at the moment when it happened, I saw it. I didn't really know what that was, but years later, I'm competing on one of the biggest stages for the World Championship of Public Speaking, and I have this talk called Through the Fire. And it's about knowing that at any minute, you can decide that everything that I was before this moment, I am not that any longer. And everything that I need to do to become the person that I want to be, I'm going to start marching towards that. So it first starts with a decision. Then it starts with now reprogramming your habits. Because I had spent years writing, years thinking about it, years visualizing it. Was I nervous? Sure. But I looked at it as more of as an exciting new journey that I'm about to go on. So that reframed it so that I wasn't maybe as nervous as I could have been if I only focused on, well, what if I fail? What if I don't get it? Right. So because I know how to instantly change my thoughts affect the emotions that run through your body. It affects how you perceive those thoughts. So I learned how to change my perspective on life and the perception on what happened to me. And so I look at what happened to me as a blessing, because now I'm bigger, faster, stronger, and I can help people who've been through things like having a parent be addicted to crack cocaine or another substance. How do you support them? How do you help them? And also I got to give a shout out to my mother, because my mother, she knew after she got out of her treatment program that she also needed to take the family through group treatment together so that we could heal and mend the wounds and rebuild trust. So I learned how to cope at a very early age. And then later on through the military, tragedy happened. I lost some shipmates and things like that with different exercises, but we had therapy. And one of the things that I learned was called cognitive behavioral therapy. And it's just the practice of kind of like writing down, what you're feeling and then analyzing each feeling and determining whether or not you have control to change that feeling or whether something is outside of your control. And once you can determine acceptance on the things that you can control and the wisdom to know that what things you can't, which is kind of like the serenity prayer, right? God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Once you have that, you now have a game plan to like go through life with like, okay, I'm going to be uncomfortable at times, but here's my strategy to get through it.
That resonates big time, man. No, I love that. And thanks for saying that serenity prayer, because that's helped me in so many ways. And I mean, we've talked about that too.
I've talked about getting that tattooed on myself.
I literally it just passed through my mind. Yeah.
Remember Seinfeld? But serenity now!
Yeah, of course, man. Man, I mean, you said a lot there, and just even like foster care, for instance, like you going through it. I've fostered kids as well, yeah, and it's I've seen that other side, you know, and it's wild, and we'll talk more about that later, I think. But I mean, I know exactly what you're talking about. You've been in the middle of it all as a kid. It's tough, man. I mean, so the fact that you've reframed that with the structure. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
And no, I was going to say, and so, you know, I got to a certain point. I mean, 15, I had a really rough situation. A friend of mine did something crazy. I spent the night in jail because of his actions. And I had kind of a decision to make in my life. I was like, okay, you know, I'm going through this therapy stuff. I'm learning how to deal with my anger, my emotions, my sadness, my sorrow. But at some point, I had to make a decision. Who do I want to be? Right. Do I want to be someone who is, you know, running from the cops, running from rival gangs, maybe ending up dead or in jail? Is that the life that I want, or do I feel like I'm here for something far greater? The overwhelming answer internally, every cell in my body is like, you're here for greatness. So if you're going to be here for greatness, then you've got to make a decision, and with decision comes a change of actions. So one of the things that my mother did to get clean was she had to change the people, the places, and the things that she did with her time in order to not be in a vulnerable situation that she once was in. I had to do the same thing. I had to become kind of like a lone wolf. I had to separate myself from people. Not that they were all bad people, but it just takes one bad apple to ruin the bunch, right? It takes one bad actor to draw unnecessary attention, the heat, the fuzz, right? And so I made a decision, and I was like, I'm going to focus on school. I'm going to focus on basketball. I'm going to focus on my creative endeavors, which ended up turning into businesses, you know, at an early age. And so for me, it was understanding that no matter what happens to you, you get to determine what it meant to you. Was it a blessing or was it a curse? Every single thing that happens to me nowadays is a blessing, because even if it's something horrific, I can excavate and find what was the lesson inside of it. What do I need to learn from this? And how can I teach this forward? And then also too, as a comedian, it's just like, it's all material.
Yeah, right?
It is. There was a guy, Tracy Morgan, who he got to meet my mother one day. And my mother was coming to one of my shows in New York City when I was back in like 2012, 2013. And he wasn't the nicest guy. I was like, man, F Tracy Morgan, right? But even though I didn't like meeting him physically, think about it. He probably gets mobbed all the time. People want his autograph. My mother just wanted to meet him, right? He wasn't anything to me. Like, I feel like I'm just as funny as him. So there wasn't any kind of like fanboying for me, right? But one of the things he said, and I heard him on a podcast, was somebody was like, "Hey Tracy, like, how did you come up with your material?" And he was like, "Well, you know, I'm 44 years old, so my whole life is material. Everywhere I go is material, right?" And that always stuck with me. It's like, I don't need to contrive a story to make people laugh. Life is literally funny enough. So if I just continue to live life, if I continue to expand in every direction that I'm passionate about, I'm going to learn a lot of things. I'm going to be blessed with opportunities, experiences, connections, and that's what I take forward to help me be prepared for anything that comes my way.
Man, is this how you stay in the flow state?
Well, so here's the thing about flow. You can't stay in flow. You can, it's a cycle. True. Flow is a 4-step cycle, right? First is information overload. So I'm always learning, and yes, I'm always kind of like, man, that's a lot of stuff. That's heavy, right? But I'm constantly learning in different categories. So I'm always kind of entering flow for different areas of my life. Second, after information overflow, you have to take a break. You have to take rest. So that's why I schedule my massages, right? 1 to 2 times a week. I'm always trying to force myself into scheduled rest, because otherwise I'll just keep going, right? Then after there, flow state can happen after those scheduled rests, because ideas have had time to kind of coalesce, connect, random things that maybe I look at something today, but it connects 2 dots that were previously just lingering there without connection, right? Then after a flow state, you have to have, like, if you're in flow for a day or two, find some place to rest, get some good nutrition, because you will just crash and or binge because you just have this like hunger that comes over you, hunger for sleep. Your body gets sore. There's things that are happening in flow. And I learned a lot of that from one of the companies that I used to work at called One Taste, that taught something called orgasmic meditation. Tim Ferriss mentioned it in one of his books, but also Steven Kotler talked about it in his book, Rise of Superman, where he talks about the flow state. And he's done a lot more work since then on that. But flow is so important, but it has to do with learning, then learning how to process what you've learned, then allowing the flow to happen. Like it's like I don't just turn it on when I want to, but I practice certain things that put me in position to kind of get there. And podcasting is one of those things. Yeah. Or when I'm speaking, when I'm doing comedy, when I'm public speaking, when I'm podcasting, or if I'm making music, those are the things that tap me into it the quickest.
100%. And that's what I was actually about to say. Podcasting, like today is a podcast day. You're our third interview conversation.
Okay.
But like we're both pumped up. Like I know I've just been locked in here, headphones on, help of course. But what you just said, I mean, because we've had Kotler on, Steven has been on here, and you know, he talked all about, I'm sure you probably saw it. But I like the fact that you prepare yourself and engineer flow into a specific time. I've never heard of that, the way that you presented it, especially with the rest, you know, before and after.
I'll tell you this, because so I recently, I would say since COVID, I released 55 pounds into the wild, right? I released 55 pounds from my body. And this was, you know, I'm 41 now. So this was on my 40th birthday. So 2019, October, I turned 40. And I'm like, man, I want to be fierce and fit in my 40s, right? Because there's a lot of things I want to do. I have the wisdom to do them now. I have the know-how, I have the connection base. So I want to be focused in my 40s, right? Yeah. And going into COVID, I had just won a bet with a couple of colleagues where we all put $100 in a pot, and I won $500 for losing 17 pounds in about 35 days, right? Nice. So I wanted to keep that going. So I created this little process to gamify my weight loss using a couple of apps, one called Charity Miles, one called Zero. Those are both free apps. And then I had a scale app that allowed me to track my weight loss, right? That actually a friend of mine who's an amazing programmer out of the Bay Area, John McMahon, he gifted to me on my 40th birthday. I just looked up in the mail, had some from Amazon. So with these three apps, I was able to gamify and track my progress. And so in losing that weight, one of the ways that I did it was I wanted to do it in a way that was simple, that I could recreate every day, that wouldn't cause pain, that wouldn't cause discomfort, and that was walking. So literally last year, I traversed 5,020 miles. Wow. I averaged about 15 miles a day. Wow. Over the course of a year. And so while doing these morning walks, I was engineering flow just about daily, because when you walk for about an hour to 2 hours, you create something, you release something, especially if you do it fasted. See, I was doing it fasted, which takes a lot of willpower, but our bodies are capable of burning sugar or fat. And I was like, I'm going to lose this weight, so I got to lose this fat. And so in walking for 2 hours to 4 hours every single day, I was creating something called BDNF, brain-derived neurotropic factors. That's one of the things that Steven Kotler talks about. That's what you can get when you go into flow states, because now your body is like, hey, let's burn this excess fat. We don't have glucose here, so let's be super efficient. Let's burn this fat, but let's release this neurochemical cocktail so that the person is going to be more creative, so they can find food. Yeah. That's what it's all about. It's taking us back to that primal level. So in doing that, I start every day by paying myself first, even if it's only a mile. Like today, I was kind of tired because I just came back from Sacramento, had this amazing 5-star cannabis dinner that I attended. Nice. So I was recovering from the excess food I was eating, the traveling. So I let myself sleep in, but I also got a mile in because I was like, I want to make sure that I can be in the right headspace for the podcast, have my thoughts flowing. But morning cardio, which we did in the Marine Corps as well. First thing we did was we woke up. We went to the head, brushed up, washed up, put on PT gear, and we went and ran our 2 to 5 miles per day before we ate, in order to get our brains flowing and going, so that they can start stuffing it with information and knowledge. Yeah, man. So you could force flow daily by creating a regimen that I call it pay yourself first in the morning. Pay yourself first. get that internal furnace going, get that creativity going. That's the best investment you can make every day.
And I could see that. Yeah. If your body is looking, basically it's looking for food, it's going to help your brain make those connections. So, which is exactly the flow state. And then is there something that happens after? Like, do you have a journaling practice to kind of carry that into
I don't at the moment, and I'm thinking about adding some of those things because I know there are things that I do that I do naturally without thinking about it because I've practiced it for so long, right? So I'm a big believer. To me, automation is everything. So automation is to your time what compound interest is to your money. And if you learn how to leverage it, you're going to create an abundance of time freedom, which is the only thing that none of us can get back, right? I appreciate you guys. We're spending this time together. We can't get this back. So for me, I'm like, I got to come ready, come prepared, because I want them to A, appreciate the time we spent together, but also B, know that because we're using technology, we've now created automation where this podcast is going to play over and over and over again in someone's ear, and they're going to glean something from it, right? So for me, because I do these long walks, I'm actually doing my journaling while I'm walking.
Okay. So
because you're releasing the brain-derived neurotropic factors, I'm stacking activities. So I'm working on blog posts, email posts. I finished up a book actually walking. I actually finished my first book, which is going to come out soon, probably this month, but I finished it in 10 days.
Is that the
while walking?
Super connecting, right?
Super connecting, the art and science of creating meaningful relationships in a digital age. And I had this grand vision of when I was going to release it. I started writing it in 2018, but then I held it off because I was like, well, I want to win the world championship, and then I'll use that as a platform to launch it. And that didn't happen. I'm the vice champion. I came in second place, right? But it's funny because sometimes you're waiting because there is something that can tie it all together. And that thing was the power of voice in your business to connect. So whether that be podcasts, voice notes, on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, the more you use your voice and tell your story or connect with people and authentically inquire and become interested in people instead of just interesting, the more opportunities you're going to have to serve, which in turn is going to help you grow and scale any business you're doing.
Yeah, I love that. Now, so when you say you're journaling and doing that stuff while walking, you've got your headphones on and you're just talking into a mic? You're just walking and talking and whatever flows out?
One of the cool apps I've been using for a couple of years now is Otter. So Otter.ai, I've been using that. That's what I actually used. Actually, I recorded my book in Evernote, recorded the files in Evernote because that's where I kind of had all of my headings, my chapter headings and summaries and things like that. So I recorded underneath all of those different points. But when I wanted to transcribe it, I was like, man, this is going to be a lot of work to do it manually. I was able to just upload those files into Otter and it transcribed it, and then I can go in and clean it up. So I'm in the final process of editing it now, finally, but the missing link was the power of voice. And now I'm going to have a 360 viewpoint with that particular chapter because of how I've used it on apps like Clubhouse, obviously podcasting, but voice notes, and also sending voice emails. I sent a voice email to my now current girlfriend that literally was something I'd never done before, and it changed the game. And we've been together for 4 months now and talking about moving in together, all sorts of crazy stuff because of the power of voice. I'm going to finish that final chapter and send it home.
Yeah. And the audiobook becomes really easy after that too.
It does. It does.
Because you've already got the audio.
You got the audio, but then you have the bonus for people who buy the book early, which is it's like the unedited audio.
The uncut, the unfiltered.
Is the uncut version, right?
Dude, all the behind the scenes stuff. And that's what's beautiful with like podcasting and any medium for music. I mean, that's just the perfect way to, you can monetize your content further that way, but also give access in a bigger way and a lot more value too.
Absolutely.
Okay. So that book, I definitely want to get. I mean, I was telling Matt, I'm like, okay, there's a reason why JaMarr and I really hit it off on that call, and I was like, because I'm all about connecting, but it's like when you were talking about something, I'm like, oh, okay, I want to dial in on some of this stuff. So I read the book, summary at least, So when that's live, we'll link it up. I think you already have a page open for it. But
I have a page where the pre-order. I mean, I've already sold over 100 copies on the pre-order, so people that really want it. It's it's to me, it's like the easy way to connect it would say it's like the modern day how to win friends and influence people, but it's more of the how do you leverage current technology to do it, and also have it be a little bit more meaningful, because we connect with a lot of people online digitally all the time, but how much of it goes deeper than just surface? So it's really a in-depth look, case study, exact how to, and then all the stories of how things came about for me.
Nice.
In fact, I mean, I got featured. You guys, when we get off, you guys got to send me your mailing address, because I want to send you a book that I got featured in from a guy that I connected with during the pandemic over LinkedIn via a podcast. And then he heard one of my stories. He's like, I got to put this in my book.
Wow.
And his book is getting incredible reviews right now. It's like one of the top books of 2021. So
right on, man. We will
send you guys a copy.
Thank
That'd
you.
be awesome.
Man.
Well, let's talk about connecting for a minute. Like, what's your overall approach? Like, is there any sort of like overarching sort of big idea of how you approach connecting with people?
Yeah, I mean, the overarching approach that I have is that you want to connect with people without any objective other than to see where you connect. So for me, like, of course, when you're out physically in places, you look at people who look important, who maybe dress very nice. So you look for something that stands out, right? So that's like the easy, okay, that person looks important. Let me go find out what they do, right? But the other approach is to kind of like if you're doing the things you're passionate about, you're going to be excited, you're going to be energized, and you're going to radiate in a way, right? So you're just naturally if you just go live your life, you're going to just bump into people. Then the key is to be interested and not simply interesting. Like, I know I'm a good speaker. I've been doing stand-up. If I want to go places and dominate the space, right? I know exactly how to do that, right?
Yeah.
But if you want to be a super connector, you want to be more connectable, but you want to observe more than anything, right? Because you want to find out how you can best serve someone. That's where the value comes in. So what I tend to do is, and it's something that, people talk about this in sales, but I do something called FORM. I do it naturally now without thinking about it, but FORM is family, occupation, recreation, and motivation. So I want to inquire about those things with people whenever I meet them. Business, we can get to that later.
Yeah.
Let's find out, do we like each other? Do we like spending time with each other? Because if we like spending time with each other, we're not going to have to rush to get some business conducted. We're not going to say, all right, you got 15 minutes. What do you got? We're going to be like, oh, I love this. Oh. And then it's like 20 minutes goes by. The meeting was only scheduled for 15, but we did 35, 40. And we're like, oh man, we didn't even get to business. We need to connect again. And now you've got someone that you're going to be able to get referrals from before you've even finished working with them.
That's right.
Because you've taken the time to anchor into each other's lives, see where there are connection points. And then my thing is, like, I call it always be inviting, right? Always be inviting people to check out content that you think they would find valuable, inviting people to events that you think that they would find valuable, and inviting people to make other connections with your network. See, the thing is if you have people in your network and you're not reaching out to them and finding out who they need for their network, then you're missing a great opportunity to make sure that the network that you've created is actually lifting you up versus just being loose connections all randomly unconnected.
That's right, man. Because that's the thing. It's so easy to, with now an access of social media and outreach programs and all of this, you can get connected pretty quickly and even automate that whole process. But what are you doing after the fact? And also, are you realizing that's a human on the other side of that connection, especially if you're online?
Yeah.
And there's my approach to follow-up, right? I say the fruit is in the follow-up. But there's one of my favorite songs by Frank Ocean is I've been thinking about you, no. I've been thinking about you, no. Right?
Yeah.
I've been thinking about you. That is the best follow-up to follow up with a person. And Joe, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I actually sent you a text very similar to that.
100% you did, man.
Because I knew that there had been some time that passed. We didn't quite connect, but my spidey sense was like, something's not right here.
Yeah, you're right.
I know he was going on vacation. I know he's busy, but man, the guy would at least reply unless something was wrong. And something actually was wrong, right?
Yeah.
So
thank you, man. Yeah, I just pulled it up right now, and you sure enough did. And you're asking about family too. So it's like, there you go. Starts with family. Your word, you follow your own medicine. Yeah, your prescription there.
Yeah.
And that wasn't like I didn't program that into an app and say, make sure I follow up with Joe and ask him how his family's doing, right? I'm not leveraging automation in that way. Yeah. When it comes to people that I truly, really want to connect with, they're on my mind. Mm-hmm. And so I can either, write it down or go into a CRM, or literally in the moment that someone really crosses my mind, I always practice the art of just reaching out in that moment.
Yeah, man.
And not letting it go by. Not saying, you'll never, someone will call me, they'll never hear me say, I've been meaning to call you, because I usually always do first thought, best thought. You learn that in stand-up with improv. First thought, best thought. Don't try to overthink it to try to overcomplicate the idea to make people laugh. Get to your truth as fast as possible. So if I'm thinking about somebody, I usually send it out to them, because that way I won't forget.
Yeah. I do the same exact thing, because I don't want to forget, and I'm not great with with all the system stuff. I can use them, but I could see your walks engineering that, because when I do that kind of thing, just getting outside, inevitably I'll come back with like 5 people I want to contact, or like, oh, I should introduce them to this, or ask them, and it's like, well, just use that same time and do both. Yeah. And send it in voice.
Yep.
What are we going to say, Matt?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What I was going to say, and this is something that I don't know if this is something you've done methodically or if it just kind of landed that way, but on the side of actually being interesting, it seems like, you've got a lot of things that people could find interesting about you. It seems like, there's a lot of stuff you're into, stand-up comedy, music, you've got the military background, you've got, there's so many different things that, that you can relate to or relate with people on, right? And I think that's a real, a real amazing quality to have when you're out there trying to network with people, is I'm going to find something that's relatable to this person. Yes. And was that something like methodical? Do you purposely spread the deck of I just want information from all different worlds?
Well, I wish I could say, this is a strategy that I created. Honestly, it literally is just a byproduct of being a curious person. Yeah. Because I know how to learn, I consider myself a super learner. I pursue learning daily as if it's like a sport, right? I just love to learn. So with that, and then you combine that with being a comedian, you want to have relatable experiences. So I've said yes to a whole bunch of things that I don't have a strong interest in, only because I knew it would create an interesting story. Mm-hmm. I was like, you know what? Skydiving, I flirted with death enough growing up in the hood, joining the military. Do I really need to skydive? Not really. However, there was a cute girl at one point who I wanted to get to know. And she's like, hey, randomly, she's like, hey, I'm going to go skydiving. And say, you want to go? And I was like, yeah. I'm like, what am I getting myself into, right? Yeah, man. But then the experience of skydiving was life-changing. And I had a story of the whole experience to now pull from for material, for a book, for whatever. But for me, it's like life is so interesting that the more of it that you live, the more of it that you get to tell about. So it just creates a more interesting life to experience. And then at least you could say, oh, I've tried that. I liked it. I didn't like it. Right. At least you could say versus nah, I would never do that. And it's like, well, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah. Man. You never know. Now bungee jumping, I'm never going to do bungee jumping because I would feel very awkward with a bunch of white people standing around and me hanging from a rope.
That's not good. No. There's many reasons, but that's probably that. Yeah.
No, it looks uncomfortable. It just looks uncomfortable.
No, I don't trust
if
it.
If the right person asked me, if there was the right bet or whatever, I would say yes.
Yeah. We don't need to go there though. Yeah. Man, I would jump out of a plane any day over bungee jumping though. Any day. But okay, quick question. How do we find Through the Fire, your speech? Is that pretty easy to just Google
you know what?
and find?
No, I'll send you a link. So it's it's one of those things. Toastmasters International, they put stuff like on their site, and they're not the best at marketing, so stuff gets buried. But I have my own kind of personal copy that I send to people, on my YouTube channel. That goes through it. I look a lot different because I was 55 pounds heavier in that video. But I'll send you guys a link to it.
Man.
Through the Fire.
Through the Fire. I mean, I'm looking at the time. Are you okay on time, or you got to bounce right now?
I'm great. No, I blocked off 2 hours for this. I was hey, we can go over, and if we need to, you can chop it up.
Oh yeah,
send it out.
Oh, it'll be good. Yeah, I just want to make sure you're good there. But
I'm good.
What other direction, Matt?
Well, there was the only other thing that I really wanted to dive in. I just don't know how deep of a rabbit hole it is some of the affiliate marketing stuff.
AC. In the house.
AC. I mean, listen, I think of affiliate marketing all day, every day. I study it all day, every day. I am I'm basically the chief marketing officer for a company that is looking to do affiliate marketing at a high level. So I have to figure out how to teach it in a restricted space, so to speak. And, I'm connected with a lot of affiliate marketers, a lot of my musician buddies that teach music, create plugins, have VSTs, all of that. All of us do it. So we can go as deep as you want to, but it's basic. It's like word of mouth, except you are systematizing it, right? Yeah. If you find something that you like and you tell people about it, you can get paid for it. That's the general crux of it. And I can't tell you how many apps I have on my phone that, they got an affiliate program. Next thing you know, I'm sending it out to 10 people and, it's the app just paid for itself, right? So that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah. So is your approach more just kind of like recommending one-to-one, or how have you systematized that?
Oh, well, I mean, I have so many different systems. So I have a huge email list. So my email list is like 73,000. I need to cull it down a little bit, but it's 73,000 people. I've got my Instagram list. I've got my text list is 12,000. And then I've got a bunch of different Facebook pages and then a LinkedIn. So basically it comes down to like having segmented lists of people that you refer things to because it's truly going to add value to them. I don't really do the shotgun approach where I'm constantly just blanketing everyone on my list with the same stuff.
Right.
But, I have like my list of, 3,000 music producers, right? So if one of my buddies is launching his VST, it makes sense to market it to them. It doesn't make sense to market it to everyone who's just general affiliate marketing. So it's just really being segmented with your list. But email, of course, text, of course. Everybody knows there's an app called Community. I use them briefly, but I'm partnered up with Ryan Leslie's company, Superphone. So I use that as like my main group one-to-many texting service. And then Instagram, there's a bunch of different services and tools and apps, and all of those things, of course, have affiliate programs. So it's like, as you use them to get success servicing a client, it's like, oh, well, this is something that I can go recommend to other people in pursuit of. And of course, when you look at the gold rush in 1849, the first millionaire looking for gold wasn't someone who found gold. It was the person selling the tools for the people looking to get gold. So, I'm a big advocate of using tools, using automation because of how much time it saves you. And then I love to help people, get back the thing that they can't get back, which is time. Save it with different tools. So I'm always trying and testing tools. And now in this current role, we just did like a big software integration with a tool that's a really cool kind of like virtual business card, landing page, CRM all-in-one tool that's like goes for like $30 a month. Well, through my affiliate code, people get 50% off for the lifetime of that tool. And it allows them to be a super connector in the standpoint that, whoever they share that tool with, if they wanted their own version customized, they could do the same thing as well and get that, 50% off for lifetime. So think about like people who work in networking businesses, like real estate agents and insurance agents. And, the list goes on and on and on. That's kind of who I've been serving. And one of my clients used to be a big insurance, agency with like 26 different agency owners in this group. And so, helping them with those types of things to systematize their follow-up game so that they can make more sales.
Yeah, now that's super fun. I gotta check that out. Do you have an affiliate link for that? Or
I do. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I'll send you one of my corporate codes.
Yeah, we'll check that out.
Yeah, it sounds like your approach is.
They build it off of the Twilio platform, but it's a very, very, it's a very, very integrative app and desktop that allows you to text one to many.
I like it.
And you can create funnels within there by using hashtags as a way of basically having people trigger keywords. Right. So it's almost like, so one of the other areas that I've been focusing on for like 3 years now is messenger marketing. And so with messenger marketing, you could have someone type a keyword and then they'll see a funnel that appears based on that keyword.
Whoa.
Same thing with the hashtags on Superphone.
I follow that. Okay. So you can kind of just discover a funnel through a hashtag almost. And
well, yeah, but imagine they wouldn't discover it on their own. You would alert them to it. So let's say I'm speaking right at the Hustle and Flow and Flow Chart, summit.
That's right.
And I have a special offer just for people who are at this summit, right? I can say, text me at this number, and then I can say, and then use this hashtag, right? It might be Hustle and Flow, and that will then reveal to them a particular funnel and offer only for people who type in that hashtag.
Got it. So that triggers the automations and all that other follow-up stuff to happen. Okay.
Exactly.
And then you can have like a whole like time delayed sequence kind of thing where they get this message today and then tomorrow. That's so cool.
1,000%.
So it's like active campaign, but for texting.
Pretty much sounds like.
For tech, that's exactly what it is. And it was created because Ryan Leslie became an independent artist after the deal he had with Sony just wasn't kind of what he wanted it to be. And with 15, I think he sold 15,000 albums his first year as an independent artist, but he made $2.3 million.
Wow.
And how he did that was because as he sold them tickets, as he sold them experiences, he could track all those sales directly to numbers. And then that's when he created the Superphone as a solution to his own problem, which was, how do I keep connected with my fan base?
Ooh, yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, as an artist, it's like you got to almost like recreate, with the whole industry, the, agreements, all that stuff. And even with the pandemic, without touring and all that, I mean, this is probably the best way for any creatives to message people at scale, give them cool perks and stuff.
Absolutely. And you can have things where like, when and I'll give people my number here. When you text the Superphone number, the first thing it does is it has you input your information. So now you're in the database appropriately, right? Name, email, maybe zip code, maybe birth date. Like you can ask for what specific information you want to have for sure. And then you can have triggers go out, like on birthday messages, for example. Imagine getting a birthday message from someone you truly admire that's also an artist. Like, oh, that's going to really brighten up your day. Yeah, but then it's going to make you maybe go re-listen to some of their songs. And now they're getting more stream listens and things like that, right?
For sure. No, it's brilliant. It's another super connecting app right there. That's perfect.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
I want to give a shout out really quick to the LinkedIn course. I want to kind of shine a light on that. So you have a whole, if people are waiting on that super connecting book, because I know I am. I started digging through your LinkedIn course, and the thing is amazingly well done. I think it's only like less than an hour. Yeah. And how do people find that though? Because I think 2 points. It's a perfect addition of this interview here, this conversation, but also just the fact that you're creating content on LinkedIn is very interesting in that whole LMS thing that they're introducing. So how can folks find it?
So there is a separate app that you can download on your app called LinkedIn Learning. So that would be the app where you can watch it. They typically offer like a free 30-day trial. So you can, if you have an Apple like I do, you can subscribe to it, cancel the subscription so it doesn't bill you, but you get a free 30-day trial so you can look at as many things as possible. The cool thing about that is as you're learning courses, you can actually get credit for that showing up on your profile. So for people that are, still kind of in that corporate grind, or even if you're just a consultant and you want to show that you're continually learning new things, LinkedIn can be great because as you're learning things, you're tracking it. Like, I mean, I probably watch 6 hours of YouTube a day, some of it for just enjoyment, sports highlights, but also for education. But none of that's being tracked other than I can see it in the back office of like how many hours and minutes and, 1,000 views I'm watching. But to do it on LinkedIn means that you professionally can show that you are continually that consummate professional who's learning on a regular basis.
It's gamified.
So LinkedIn, yeah, gamified it, exactly. But I think also too, it's like you gamify, but I think also it's like a status thing. Right?
Totally, yeah, both.
If you're saying you're going to help people in this niche, but you've got 10 hours of study time, you've taken tests and things like that for those different courses, that's going to hold up a lot more than just saying, I'm well versed in that. It's like, they can actually go see it, and you can show them, hey, actually, if you go to my profile, you can scroll down and see everything that I'm certified in, right?
Interesting.
So it's like that validation system.
Yeah. So how do people get access to that?
To your course.
To your course specifically.
So to my course, if you just type in Super Connecting, or you type my name, JaMarr John Johnson, on the LinkedIn Learning app, or you can do it on the desktop as well. It'll pull itself right up, Super Connecting. Right. And that was literally like a piece of my book that I put into a video form to help with the marketing promotion, and they actually get paid. I get paid royalties on the course being viewed as well. So, we can talk to you guys offline about like, how do you go about that? There's a process. There's some people I can connect you with. But it could be just another place to, spread some amazing seeds that will drive people back into your ecosystem.
I think it's smart, man. Leveraging other platforms and another production team, it looked like, helping you with all that. So yeah, man. Let's chat about that, because that
real deal.
Fits in line with our marketing plan.
That hour worth of video took about 6.5 hours to make.
I believe it. Yeah, we've done something similar with the company here in town, WealthFit. Similar, pre-scripted, walked us through it, but when you're in there, you're there for like half a day.
Yeah, that was the day that I learned that I'm absolutely horrible with the teleprompter.
No teleprompter for me. Literally, we would go through section. I would have her just read off what was the heading that I wrote down, and then I would just go off the top.
Yeah, next time that's how we got to do it, because the teleprompter was no bueno for me. Joe and I were sitting next to each other, and like as he was reading his lines, I noticed my mouth was going. I thought I was like reading the lines with him in my head, but my mouth was doing it too.
We'll stick to natural.
Using a teleprompter takes skill and timing, and they have these automated ones now on your iPad. But even when you have someone who's like controlling the speed of it and you're doing it, it's like the coordination it takes to get good at that is impressive.
Yeah, and we're so much better at just riffing. Like that's just flow.
Yeah, sweet. Well,
absolutely.
We'll probably give a link or something in the show notes too to the LinkedIn course, because I think that's just.
I really appreciate that.
Of course, man. I mean, it's free for the at least trial. I mean, it's interesting. There's probably a bunch of other cool courses, but there's a bunch. I mean, they used to be lynda.com. Yep.
I don't know if you remember lynda.com. Like I said, sold for over $1 billion. Yeah, man. But they've got a ton of content on there. But like anything, content becomes dated rather quickly, right? So there's always a never-ending need for new content. So there's a huge opportunity to take advantage of if you guys are interested in doing something with your brand and getting out there.
For sure, man.
Definitely.
Well, let's tie a bow around this bad boy, because we've covered a lot. So I'm kind of curious. I guess like where are you? What's your vision looking like? Where are you headed? Got something exciting you're working on right now that you want to share or put out into the world?
Yeah, I am. So we talked a little bit about it, Joe, on our first call. But what I'm doing now as the chief marketing officer for the second largest cannabis grower here in California, and we have an affiliate program attached with it, right? And the cool thing, like we got some cool stuff coming out like in June. So we've partnered with a company out of San Diego. I was actually down there a couple of weeks ago to go through some final walkthroughs on some products. But basically, we're going to have like these genetic testing kits that can be sent out anywhere in the country, right? And a person for around $300 can do a DNA swab and get a 35-page report plus a 15-minute consult from an MD. So we're going to call this product Nirvana MD, and it's going to be under our umbrella of kind of like health and wellness and longevity. So with this study and with this report, people will be able to know exactly how much CBD and THC that they should consume to help them with whatever ailments or whatever health and wellness objective they're actually pursuing, whether that be weight loss, stress relief, sleep, anxiety, pain management. And so with that, that's going to help us have kind of a national footprint with the Nirvana MD brand. and that will kind of create a pathway. So as the cannabis brand, which it has to be sold in the state in which it's created, as we expand out to Nevada and then Arizona, and as we expand out state to state, customers will be able to know that they can get a very consistent, high quality product, cannabis derived. So not the CBD that you can go get at CVS, the real stuff, right? The controlled substance, so to speak, right? The Schedule 1. Yeah. They'll be able to get that from a brand that they can trust. That's, probably going to be one of the biggest brands in the space. We're one of the biggest growers in the space, but we're going to be competing with companies like Parallel Lines, which is the Wrigley's family out of, they're out of Florida now. They've got 39 dispensaries there. Yeah. We're coming for a different demographic. We're looking for people who are not interested in pulling up to a dispensary a couple times a week, but would rather have it delivered discreetly to their doorstep with high quality. And most of our products are, like I said, topicals, tinctures, tablets. We also have flower. We also have vapes, but that's not really the focus. The focus is, well, what can these products do for your health and wellness? And there's an amazing book I'd recommend for people who are interested in cannabis. That it's called the Cannabis Health Index. And it's about all the things you can help alleviate and resolve with cannabis. Wow. So we're really trying to create a whole new paradigm shift with that. So that's going to be huge. The goal with that is to make that $100 million company in 2 years. We'll be there when we get 167 deliveries happening every day. As of right now, we're at 55 per day. Wow. So we're on our way, about a fifth of the way there. Huge opportunity, and eventually we'll be nationwide.
That's really so. It's like a 23andMe kind of like assessment, and then it you guys interpret the data.
It's like 23andMe for It's like 23andMe for cannabis, and like I said, we'll be able to sell that kit and mail it anywhere in the nation. Yeah. So we'll have affiliate opportunities for that program. We want to help. We want to work with health coaches. We want to work with personal trainers, chiropractors, and then we also have a system. We call it the Canna kiosk, which is basically a kiosk that helps educate and acquire customers, but allows any retail location, any physical location, to basically turn itself into a virtual dispensary so that they can tap into what will be a $25 billion marketplace by 2025. It's doing about 8 to 9 billion right now currently.
Wow. There's a lot of room to grow. This is such a smart business model, man. I mean, like I was going to say, 23andMe or like Viome is another one. I don't know if you've ever seen that. Yeah, I mean, that's a little different.
I've never heard of that one.
That's pooping in a bag, and basically they analyze your gut. But
got it. Yeah, that's important, right? Because your what's in your gut, right? Your gut biome really determines, some of your actions, some of your 100%. Subconscious things are being driven. I actually learned this many years ago. I went, on my weight loss journey, but we have more neurons in our gut than we do our actual brain.
That's right.
100 billion in our gut, 89 billion in our brain. Wow. So what you consume, what you digest, ingest, all of that stuff determines kind of your future.
That's it. Yeah. So that's Viome with a V. So just to make that clear. Yeah. I don't have an affiliate link. That's cool. So, but you're right, man. I mean,
I got an affiliate link for you guys. So, definitely want to hook you guys up so you can try some product and see what you like. And obviously I would love to work with you guys on this so we can talk more for sure offline.
Yeah. Let's do it.
And it sounds like it's got like kind of like a cloud kitchen sort of element to it too, which is just really cool. You're blending all of like cool.
I've got this dope. So, do either of you guys golf at all?
Oh, not well, but yes, I
have golfed.
Okay. well, I definitely want to take you out on the green sometime. So, what I've also been doing is sponsoring golf events every month all around Southern California. And it's funny you mentioned that cloud kitchen because this is how Super Connecting works. So, I'm doing these golf events every single month, right? And we're out there allowing people to sample some of the cannabis products. We're making connections. And so I'm like, you know what? I want to get these cannabis kiosks in pro shops, right? Yep. And if they only focused on the pain relief cream, the salve, the roll-on, or the massage oil, which has THC in it, if they only focus on just those products for like recovery, not going to get anybody high, but it'd be a great opportunity. Well, I was connecting with someone who does cloud kitchens. Here's the thing. Golf courses, their kitchen is used maybe 30% of the time. It's not like constantly going like a normal restaurant.
Right.
So they're the perfect partner with a cloud kitchen type of setup.
Dang.
So in order to bring value as a consultant, so I show up, I want to sell a cannabis kiosk, but instead I'm going to figure out, hey, how can I help you guys make some money first before I try to sell you anything. And that's kind of like that go-giver mentality.
Yes.
So you mentioned that cloud kitchen I had to bring up. That's how my mind works.
So smart.
I have something of value. I look at where I can service that and then how that can then leverage my thing after I've given them value first.
It's a win-win all around. So you're helping let's say the golf course, the pro shop. You got the helping you, of course, and then the customers. You're putting yourself in the toll booth position. Thank you, Jay Abraham.
Exactly.
You're right there, man. That's brilliant, man. I love that model. There's probably so much more smart stuff that we could pluck around from the model too.
That'll be around 2.
How can folks? Round 2 for sure.
Is there a way that folks could check it out? You have a website and all that stuff online already?
Yeah. So I think I gave you guys my link. Obviously, you can find me at Instagram, Twitter at JaMarr J, LinkedIn JaMarr Johnson, and then you can go to my website IamJaMarr.com and look me up and see all of the cool things. That's kind of like my Renaissance hub.
Yeah.
And then IamJaMarr.com/super connecting is where you can go and pre-order the book and check out some other things that I got going on. But yeah, there's so many links. Just stay connected. Let's just connect it. Let's reach out. If you take a look and watch the Super Connecting course, please add me on LinkedIn. Tell me what you thought of it. What was your biggest takeaway? I'd love to add any more specific value to you, if at all possible, using the power of voice.
Very cool. And I also want to point out JaMarr is spelled with 2 R's at the end, so it's IamJaMarr.com, just so everybody
2 R's like a pirate. JaMarr.
Dude, I love that picture too, right when you show up there on the I was like, he's got hair now. I like the hair. All right, man.
Yeah, I've been letting it grow since COVID. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go for a new one. For years in the military, I kept it high and tight and just low. So now I'm doing a new phase now. The ladies tell me it makes me look younger.
Hey, you're locked up now, man. So careful.
No, I'm locked up right now. Oh no, she'll be listening. She's a podcaster as well.
How you
actually
doing?
Met her through her podcast. And and felt inspired, and so I sent her an email with a 5-minute voice note, kind of explaining who I was and why I was reaching out, and she actually replied. So
we'll hook her up with Pod Hacker or something if it helps. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how can I help her out.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I got it. Honestly, too, is like I wanted to help her. I was like, you know what, I love podcasting, and I was like, I would do this for her anyway.
That's cool.
But then also, getting to know you guys more over time. It's like these guys are cool guys, and they're doing a great service, and to be a part of the community would be an honor. So thank you guys so much for having me on the pod.
Brother, it's an honor for us, man, and I know we can do many more of these.
Yes.
So let's make it happen. Thank you for your time, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
That was good stuff. Huh?
There you go.
I liked it. Right, man. I'm just feeling good.
You're feeling good?
It's when you have a good conversation with someone that you just completely vibe with. There's so many connections. There's so many interesting things that are just naturally flowing out.
Yeah. Well, so the original sort of catalyst for this whole thing was he was in the podcast, the Pod Hacker training, and after the Pod Hacker training, we got to talking with him. You actually got on a call with him and chatted with him more, and you're like, dude, he's into the music industry, he's into the stand-up industry, he does podcasting stuff, he's into the cannabis industry, he's into this, and it's like literally everything you mentioned is like, ooh, we're into that. And that affiliate marketing.
Very interesting person.
Yeah. And so like we just knew that there was an overlap here, and we had to bring him on the show and probably be a regular on the show as well.
I think so, because we can maybe start to maybe contain it into themes if that's the case. But yeah, either way, it's just people like JaMarr are the ones that are the ones that they're like our ultimate, like that's our buddy.
Yeah.
Like I don't even know what to label. Like he's a Renaissance man. I mean, it's like it's the most interesting man in the world.
Yeah, he's a very interesting dude.
So, I don't know. I mean,
it's like we're trying to. We want to recap some of the stuff from the call, but we're like, we covered so much ground on this one.
I'm trying to find the word so I could say it and not butcher it, and I'm wrong about it. But like, okay, so.
Entrepreneur-median.
There it is. Actually, yeah, it's right in the first line. Entrepreneur-median.
Yeah.
So that's what JaMarr calls himself. And I mean, that was the big thing is comedy. And you and I constantly are talking about how you got to entertain first.
Yeah.
Always. And that actually 2 of our podcasts that we recorded today have said the same exact thing.
Yeah.
And you know, make it interesting, make it engaging, make it funny. But it doesn't mean you need to tell one-liners.
Yeah.
You know, and we were just recalling some of the things that JaMarr was setting up, and it was just like things that we wouldn't even see coming.
Yeah.
And, like just like it felt like we were in the middle of then we were being sang to.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just had it all, right?
It had it all. And
This is the type of episode we want.
yeah, we need to do more like this, where it's just like this guy is just like, if he was in San Diego, he would probably be like
In the studio,
often hanging out with us.
Yeah. Well, we're not that far, luckily. He's just in LA, so
It's true.
we'll make it happen. But yeah, I mean, we mentioned super connecting a lot. So that was a big, we'll talk about the pillars that we kind of talked about really briefly, but super connecting, definitely go grab his book. I have not read it. Obviously it's not done yet, but go get it. It's $20 and it's linked at least in the show notes here, but it's probably in the notes too.
And a portion of what he teaches is in that LinkedIn course that he mentioned.
And definitely go, at least get that. I mean, get them both, but that one is free for a little bit. And we started going, we're about like halfway, I don't know, third way through. Covers so much. And if you just want to do a smidgen of what we, he's just diving deep in a much focused way there. And then, the affiliate marketing thing, I think that's just something that everyone can kind of do and take away.
Yeah. And I mean, just in the simple way that he put it in terms of just like, affiliate marketing is just like recommending stuff. If like cool shit comes across your table and you're like, ooh, this is really cool. I think others should know about this. That's affiliate marketing. That's it. That's as simple as it gets.
And you can automate it. You can make it one-to-one, human to human, or whatever you want to do. But yeah, it's affiliate marketing at the end of the day. That's like the umbrella, I guess, statement there, or term. And then, I don't know, any key things you want to, maybe, I like how we were talking about, the Serenity Prayer. That's a huge one. I mean, just the reframing of emotions and, because you mentioned the whole public speaking thing. It's totally true. It's like it's one of the scariest things, that and death. Yeah. That's crazy. And the fact that your brain actually stops connecting if you get in a fight or flight, didn't think of that. But the small hack of like, if you start doing routines and things to rewire, things like walking in the morning, you're actually wiring your brain. So it's like reversing fight or flight.
Yeah, I'd actually not heard that before, that, the going and walking while fasted gets the sort of brain waves going a bit. So that's cool. I mean, I have done that. Sometimes I usually do more walking in the evening.
You don't eat a lot. We've been fasting basically most of this podcast.
Yeah, we had a handful of pretzels.
If we actually do have time to go on a little walk, so let's do a lap or two, in our new studio neighborhood.
Sure, our new studio.
We'll wire some brain connections.
Yeah,
but no. In all seriousness, I think it's brilliant to like kick your day off that way.
Yeah, and then at the end when he started telling us about the cannabis company, like we didn't know we were going to go there on the podcast, and I actually didn't know much about the cannabis company. I know you had a previous conversation.
I did not know any of that. No,
but like that
there's
whole
a lot to still discover or uncover with JaMarr.
That whole like assessment concept of like, you do a little swab like 23andMe, send it in, and they'll go, okay, these are like the perfect strains for you, and like this is going to get you the best result. It all
too. Like, hey, here's how you can alleviate this thing if you did this combination of THC,
like use this topical and hit this shit.
Whatever the prescription says, I guess. I think it's just a smart business model too, and obviously the purpose behind it.
Yeah, and then he's got the cloud kitchen element where they're going to basically have the product in some of these untapped, unused spaces and use their excess inventory.
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned Jay Abraham really quickly. I mean, it's that mind, it's thinking like that in a way. It's how do we figure out the wins all around, but how can I leverage what someone else has got going on? And, I think he partnered with this company, so it's not like he created it from scratch.
Right.
But he's using his skill set to super connect and make something happen at scale. Yeah. And he's leveraging the infrastructure and the processes and foot traffic and attention, all that stuff from other people.
Yeah, it's like Mr. Beast Burger. I haven't done a Mr. Beast reference today, so there's one.
That was the first.
That was the first of 3 episodes that we recorded today. That's
impressive. Go you.
Yay! Only 1 out of 3.
Just getting tired of that guy, Mr. Beast. No. All right. Well, if you're still with us, congratulations and thank you.
Thank you.
Get the action guides. Well, first, go check out JaMarr's stuff again in the show notes, but also they'll be in the action guides from this episode. ideally, they'll be organized probably nicely for you because we covered a lot here. So go quick. Yeah, a couple weeks of this episode going live. Just go to flowchartgroup.com. Thank you for the clarification or the echo. And plug in your email address.
Do that.
We'll send it to you. And you get to join our fabulous group with amazing people.
Even if you didn't get the action guide, the group is worth it alone.
It's worth it. But we'll probably hook you up if you're like a couple days, weeks, or months, not years late.
Well,
we'll hook you up.
I don't know, probably even years, to be honest.
I mean, we want to spread the wealth. So, but go to flowchartgroup.com quickly, and we'll see you there. And also,
Easy Webby.
Let's wrap it up with our Easy Webby.
EasyWebinar.com/hustle. That's where you want to go.
Bam.
If you're going to do some webinars, which you should be doing webinars, that will help you do live, automated, hybrid, all the webinars. You can do
Alien
them all.
webinars.
Alien webinars. What is an alien webinar, Joe?
It's probably an AI, VR, AR, Elon Musk mixture of a webinar, whatever that would look like.
Well, if that's a thing, then Easy Webinar probably does them.
I think it would.
Yeah.
So you can go check it out for yourself. If you go to the website, it probably won't show the alien webinars, but just think of it in your mind as a vision and just know that you could probably construct something like that.
Yes.
One day, maybe. But Easy Webinar will definitely do all the things that you just listed and way more. So go check it out and you get it hooked up with a fat discount. It's amazing. We recommend it and use it. Go to easywebinar.com/hustle. And
For a big discount. Big discount.
Easywebinar.com/hustle.
Easywebinar.com/hustle. Big discount.
That's very good. Very big.
Big.
Big. All right.
I don't know what accent that's supposed to be.
I was
just
going
like
to
saying
ask
big.
you.
Big webinar.
Making it up. That's all good.
Yeah.
Felt right.
Yeah.
Right? Well, if you're still here, we appreciate you. We love you. I know.
You keep asking if they're still here.
Are you still here? Is this thing on? I know.
Who's listening to us? We're just like little kids making our mixtapes back when we were like 8 years old. Like, so today we're listening to some
ourselves.
Salt and Pepper.
Well.
You know?
Okay, now we're just mixing way too bad.
And in this track, 9 Inch Nails. Because it's like they'd be on the same channel.
Yeah.
If you're making a mixtape as a kid.
Yeah. A Weezer.
Yeah. And here's Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Oh, wow, man. Bring it back.
That's all we're doing. We're just making adult mixtapes.
I like it.
And if you're still listening,
you should at least subscribe to the show if you haven't already. I'm sure you are if you are here still with us. But what's a takeaway? And this is stealing the idea from Alex Mondosian, who's been on another episode. But go to your favorite platform. Probably it's Apple Podcasts. That might not be your favorite platform, but just go there anyway. And you can write a review. I hope we earned your 5-star rating. If not on this episode, some other episode. But,
and if we didn't earn your 5-star rating, don't write the review.
Yeah,
Wait until we do.
Exactly.
Keep coming back until we impress you.
But with this episode, let us know in the review there on Apple Podcasts a takeaway. Like, what's a takeaway? We covered a lot of stuff here. What's something that stood out, and how are you going to apply it to whatever you're doing in life?
Yeah.
So go to Apple, go give us that little note, little 5-star review if we earned it. If not, you know the deal, what Matt said. And we'll read them on here. I think that'd be really cool. Maybe,
yeah.
You know, we really got to do that. We've been saying it too often.
Maybe I'll read one right now.
Be quick.
It was from Kat Stancic. She wrote, "These guys really dive deep and deliver on the value for your time investment. It's engaging, entertaining, and provides actionable steps people could take on each episode to get bigger results in their business. A bit like an NBA of practical and tactical strategies in your pocket."
Practical,
Thanks, Kat.
practical and tactical. She said it's business must.
And by the way, we're up to 191 ratings.
Whoa! Why was I underselling us?
Yeah, so we'll read these on future outros.
Yeah, let's wrap her up here, huh?
But yeah, I got to relearn how to use Chartable because I haven't logged in here in a while. Okay.
Yeah. So you know what to do. But we appreciate you, and until next time.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks everybody for listening to this episode of the Hustle and Flowchart podcast. Before taking the time to listen, we want to give you something a little bit special. Every single episode that we do, we actually have somebody on our team take notes. We basically have a Cliff's Notes version of every episode where you can go and find all of the tips and tactics that they laid out, all of the resources that they laid out, all the good stuff from this episode. We actually have a nice simple notes version that you can find on our website. So go to evergreenprofits.com, find this episode that you just listened to, and give us your email address and we'll send you the notes. Thanks for listening.